This is an orientation video for Dr. Irvin's English 1301 online class, and this video is going to focus on what I call the strands of work. You'll see that there is a predictable pattern to the work that we're going to do in this class and how the assignments will flow and when things are due. And that's what this video is about, helping you see that pattern so that you're not quite so overwhelmed with all the different things that we're doing in the class. I'm looking at our Canvas home page, and I'm going to go to our course homepage, which I maintain from my own website here. I could have also gotten to that from our class announcements page and just simply clicked home at the top. Same place. And I'm going to click the link called Strands of Work. Now you'll see from this graphic that it's a picture of the different things that we're going to be doing in the class. Of course, it's a writing class, so we're going to be doing a number of essays. And as we write our essays, we're going to be doing drafts. So a big part of the class is the drafting of essays. And we'll typically do 3 drafts for each essay. A first draft, what I call a zero draft. A second draft, what I call a development draft, and then a final polished draft. We'll go into a little bit more detail about those in a minute. Along with our drafting, we're going to be doing some peer response and then writing reviews. These writing reviews are reflections upon our drafts that we do before we will revise them. So all those 2 elements of our strands of work are related to the essays that we're writing. In addition to that, we'll also have readings, and those readings might be about the topic that you're writing about, but they also may be course readings related to course content. And you'll have regular readings each week. In addition to the readings, every week we're going to be doing what I call grammar editing writing exercises, or editing grammar writing exercises. And these are short practice reviews related to writing and grammar. They may be an exercise, they may be just a short piece of writing or practice writing that you're doing. And then the last strand of work in the class are journals. And we'll be doing 2 different types of journals. One is what I call a free writing journal, and I'll be explaining that later. But and then in addition to that, you'll have what I call process journals. But the details here are that you'll just be doing some writing that's fairly open and informal, in addition to the other work that we'll be doing for the class. And so those are the 5 main strands of work: the drafting, the feedback and reflection that we'll be doing on the drafting, the regular reading, the regular grammar and writing review exercises, and then some regular journaling. So let's look in a more detailed way at what I call the essay cycle or writing feedback loop. And we're going to be going through this writing feedback loop for each one of the essays that we do. And you'll kind of see how it flows. You'll write a draft, and we will then receive peer response, take our draft to our peers and get some feedback. And before we begin to revise, we'll step back and reflect upon our draft and how it's doing and the feedback that we've gotten. And it'll help give us some ideas and insights about where to go with the draft before we begin to revise it. And you'll see then the kind of typical drafting activities through the whole essay cycle in all 3 drafts. And you'll see that there's the draft, the peer review, and the writing review. And I label activities PR is peer response, and WR is writing review. So let's look at our calendar, and you'll see how the strands of work will actually flow as you're doing the work. And the calendar you can get to from our home page, and there's a link. or you'll see right in our Canvas course, I've got a link to the assignment calendar right there, and it goes directly to it. So let's look more closely at this calendar, and let's kind of focus at the drafts. So you'll see that our drafts, draft 1-1 is the first draft of our first essay, draft 1-2 is second draft of the first essay, draft 1-3, E1-3 is the third draft. And you'll see they're each due, in this case on Sundays, but a week apart. And in between, so we've turned in our first draft, and you'll see that 3 days later is when the peer response is due. So you don't have to do the peer response when the draft's due. You've got some time. And then comes the writing review. Once the peer response has been completed, you don't want to do your writing review until the peer responding time has been done. Otherwise, you won't have received peer feedback. And you'll see that that's repeated. There's draft 1-2, and once again, peer by Wednesday, writing review by Thursday. And that can vary a little bit as we go through, but it's pretty consistent all the way through. I guess we have a little difference when we get to essay 4. So let's see how the editing, grammar, writing exercises go. We've got an initial one with our Smart Start, which is pretty easy, but notice that there's a consistent pattern for the process journals, PJ, and the editing, grammar, writing exercises due on Saturdays. And both of those are due on Saturdays. You can certainly turn them in earlier, but that's when that strand of work will be consistently due. And process journals are weekly, as are the editing, grammar, writing exercises. And then once we do start our free writing journal in week 3, those will be due weekly. And you'll only turn them in once a week, and those will be due on Mondays. So you'll see in the calendar all the strands of work that are in play. And there's consistent due dates for when those are due. And you'll see that really the editing review, the grammar review, and even the process journal quite often have you review materials that help you in your drafting and revision. And that's why they're placed there before. So that covers the strands of work for English 1301. And let me know if you have any questions about this, but you should see that this forms a predictable, consistent pattern for our work in the class.